The movie Papa at the bar Acroma TV so send a the latest news, any news Papa on a down at Brum. Now and the Brum nation, memory office of the like commenting. We subscribe, no share, name notification bell on one side to me. I was somewhere. Send a news about one tier on side to me. I can first. Within at the Obing Gable, Sitchin America Sibu and Brum. Now you go right this money, you go away, mammy, and young for and dear Joyce Power, Tag. Mami akasaka kana mami Mahama's aid wakasaka kana some more cannot say or born a new patriotic party new paying for in another damper show boy in a by nine or bomb which pass in fact say no musi wuli or my gun nyama enkosu is one can or what was first of all security purposes the same is equal boy ya shaman for just because he comes to the same as soldier for boy shaman for a second was like I said senior soldier for police for one can also promotion and so on she said no to me on this money pen na dream because they are money there a can woman is a mine now they don't have now by nyama influence to me kosuya but you also can say social amenities and basic amenities no say it is a fuel prices nyama maybe prices now for 3 years ni na come nana do na by nyama enkosuye was into also and then some of 22 and say in fact please manage the country well. The country is not for you. Or in another by nation that someone to Yama so to Kosuye or can hire papa, mammy to send a near brother this and see so to the Obo Chi Pioneer Ken for Atta, the finance minister or say, paying for the council, Munquire, Shama, economy Yamaso to Makosi, and also a Kobiasan and then Munquire before or Prisika, I have a Friday and Yamabia about what they said. We need Mupesika, Mundi was when to me this part of Sicadi to me and no small about what to me say, Mammy and send the green about one thing, or say good see and send your kind of say you never go to IMF, but look at you now and then somebody send your capital Kaya FIF Ken for Atta and the finance minister and send us or say this will even let us go through so much before we can get this money on this own Sembia or Sanka Yentino. My uncle could say, oh, do you need reaction? It's my miss and now, dear, the boys in full see Casano and it said, or said another now by 80 and signatures of Mutuama Biaso, which we could see. It's my uncle could say, oh, do you so.
It feeds into what is going on in the Upper East region. It feeds into the fact that there are many of these illegal arms and explosives in the wrong hands. Please, we ought to do something about this proliferation of arms in our system, especially in the wrong hands and under the circumstances. You know the process for acquiring these arms. You know how and what it takes, for example, for any individual to acquire, even legally, an arm even for personal protection and defense. And do we even want to get to that point where everybody driving, traveling has to have one way or the other to protect themselves? I think not. The earlier we do something about these things, the better. Maybe the military should continue across the country. We don't want to see photographs and videos of what happened in Ashaiman, for example, repeat themselves, but we want to see more of this attempt to curb this illegal trade and smuggling in arms across the country. Then secondly, let me ask you, Evans, we as a people know how difficult and challenging times are to buy fuel, to pay for basic amenities, what our incomes can no longer do. Whatever investments you have, you and I know that they've lost value of about 50%, and that is even a conservative estimate. We know how many people have their monies locked up in these bonds in Ghana, who are the bondholders. We have the other category of Euro bondholders, and then we also believe this is also going to affect enormously our very small middle class, who work very hard, retire, and cannot even have access to the monies they've saved for their own comfort. Look, I don't want to believe these headlines.
Right.
And I think we should stop trying to major on minus. That a mouthpiece of our country would say that a country has received applause. Really? Why didn't Greece receive applause? Why didn't Sri Lanka receive applause? Why would the country with the worst performing currency receive applause? Why are we not questioning why a government that campaigned on never going back to the IMF after mismanaging recklessly an economy that was posited to grow at least by 8%, even then in 2017, What is there to be applauding our government or administration for? For example, the IMF is coming with some very steep conditions, and you and I know that these will actually offer even more difficulty and hardship to the good people of this country. Look, let Ghanaians be the litmus test of whether or not the government has performed or failed. I think that on a scorecard, government presently has performed abysmally. The inconsistencies, the contradictions, genuinely, few of the Ghanaians who require an upliftment don't read these headlines. These are headlines just to create a certain impression. I think that we've gone for way too long with this kind of hype. Let's stop it and look at the figures even more closely. And I think that there are more critical things that we experience and suffer beyond other people or global people clapping for a government that literally wasted our resources and now need them to come back. I think that is not right. That is unacceptable. But yes, my heartfelt condolences and sympathies to all these people who have actually had to lose a family member because of these issues. You know, look, I am a parent too. These things can be very, very difficult. I don't want to comment too much on the content of the story or the headline because I really don't have the details. I don't know what he was doing as an individual, whether indeed he was an armed robber or not. You know, these are matters.
Well, one thing we know for sure is that the family protects
peace, for example, for their wards, for parents whose children are in some of these schools that we all have been talking about, for parents whose children have nothing else to, eat and drink but the school feeding dishes that are provided in these schools. And of course, for the schools that have so many children now, that there's very little that they can do to support them because they don't have adequate infrastructure. The facilities are probably bursting at their seams. And sometimes it is very difficult for you to blame the authorities in these schools. What can they do? When you look at that letter that has come, literally asking the headmasters to stand aside, where is the due process? What is the procedure that has gone on even before being asked to actually stand aside? And of course, what went into that news story about the children even using those facilities? Because when you look closely, yes, you see a little corner somewhere, but I'm not too sure that we've even undertaken adequately investigations into this matter. Look at where our economy is.
Well, they were saying, Madam Mokhtari, they were saying, look, this was the same headmaster and the senior housemaster at Post, so we're going to investigate the matter and they will step aside. Now, post the investigations, they would have to enforce whatever has been proposed. Do you think that is wrong?
I honestly think it's a bit too harsh.
Okay.
I think it also serves more or less as a way of gagging head teachers and teachers in some of these institutions.
Do you feel they are being victimized?
Oh, I believe that. If I were a teacher, for example, my mother has been a teacher for well over 50 years, and I saw such a letter. In future, I would never speak to a journalist, speak to an investigator. I'll probably not even complain at all. And I will endeavor to ensure that no student even makes a mistake to take photographs of anything. And look, this is exactly what we are all talking about. And when you look at the US Human Rights Report, the Afrobarometer, all of these findings actually speak to matters of this kind. And this is not the first time that a matter of this kind has come up. You remember some time back when a teacher complained about the quality of food in the school. Something similar occurred when a teacher complained about the numbers they were receiving and that they didn't have the infrastructure even to accept all these children who were being transferred to these schools. Something similar happened. When I look at what is happening in our economy, for example, regarding the bondholders, my best photograph to sum up everything about the economy is a photograph of our former Chief Justice, Madame Sufai Akufo. It literally summarizes for each and every one just where we are as a people. I recall a video about the finance minister appearing before the IMF board, and it might sound like a very light thing to say, but for an hour and a half, I didn't hear the Honorable Colonel Furiata make any reference to any biblical quotations or anything for that matter. If you were here in Ghana, for the people who actually elected him into office, he would have spent copious amounts of time casting aspersions and all these subtle jabs at people and little shades here and there, and even refusing actually to respond to any questions, for example. Why do we treat people who go out there and elect us into office in this manner? I know others in another category of persons who are currently waiting because they have monies in their Euro bonds as they invested in. I know some who retired from very high positions who invested in these Euro bonds because, of course, we're told that they are high yielding. They are totally in limbo. They speak to their relationship bankers and their relationship officers in the banks, and certainly they don't get any news at all. Nobody says anything to them.
Right.
I think that one of the biggest challenges in terms of how our economy has been managed so far is the lack of absolute transparency. We just have the authorities come out and tell us exactly what they think is going on, what they expect to happen, what they want to anticipate. And look at the headline this morning. For us to be told that very soon we'll be securing an IMF deal and that Ghana has received a lot of attention and mention for coming out of its economic recovery or succeeding in its economic recovery. I mean, seriously? Have you gone there to see how ordinary Ghanaian families are coping? Food prices, since we heard about a sharp decline in inflation, have you heard that food prices have gone down? It took a huge pushback for the markup on petroleum products to be withdrawn and to be reversed. Look, it is not that I am speaking because I'm a politician. I'm sure you and I also had concerns when the NDC was in office a few years ago. I'm sure there were many people within the NDC who even went out there to vote against their own political party. I'm sure you and I also know that there are many other floating voters who really don't mind who is in office that much. They just look at the issues, the economy, the state of our infrastructure, the state of our health, the state, and then they go out there and vote. Look at our health ministry, for example, coming out with a notice about what days you can use the lift and when you can't. Look at the matters with the Electricity Corporation of Ghana, for example. I mean, think about it. Where really do you want to find hope? Save in the church and in the mosque, for example.
Interesting. Well, let's make tracks.
Madam Joyce Bawa Uktawi, on student science use about to afa the new patriotic party who send an another is really on my Ghana to Senyama and Kosi, a football and a science warning so the case for the man and I will say also not to Mama Biasu to Kosi and although also pass and meeting Canada. I am a foot was sending so say was say kind of ratan in paying for no to Yama Biasu to Kosi, Sikasem, or Bosso Pantino, and then some of my me and so to the which my chair watching or comment section and I'm Musmina Bra, Musmit marking kind and will be also atonium. Aha, I are chromatic so no more roof is so like commenting. Best subscribe and watch the notification bell on side to me. I was on my said the news about one thing. Also, one side to me. I can't first. Begin at a sort of being able to say, no, make a civil, a brim, macram.